Hey, this is WhyBeAre with BeamNg.drive, and today we're going to be taking a look at the ETK 6000 and 4000 series. So we have 12 different versions we could drive here. We're going to start off with the 6200 base because that's the biggest number, and the biggest number has to be the best, but I'm not going to get one of the fancy versions of the biggest number, just the base model of the big number. And as you can see, this one is a sixth-wheeled vehicle. And with it having that many wheels and off-road looking tires, I would assume it has some off-road capability. So we're just going to start driving around up on some hills and stuff on the map right here, which is called Baja Hills, if you wanted to go and look it up. And that right there was one of the steeper areas on this outskirts of the road right here. So I'm pretty sure if it can do that with that much ease, it won't have any trouble at all just driving straight through this terrain, even getting a little bit of air here and there, letting the suspension do its job to keep the wheels on. We're actually moving too. We're going about 50 to 60 miles per hour through a lot of that. Oh, there's a big loss of speed right there though. Actually, that is a little bit more than a loss of speed. I bent the frame or something. There's some serious damage going on, and when I try to accelerate, only my left two wheels are on the ground. My right two are not on the ground most of the time, which is really negatively affecting this thing's capability. So we're just going to get a fresh one that is not damaged, and once we do that, once again, dominating this terrain. Don't even have to think about how I drive. I just hold the accelerator down until I crash into something and break it again, basically. Like right there, that's a pretty steep hill. I don't know if it'll be able to climb this, but we're going to try it out anyways. So let's see, can you do that? Not quite. So it's not exactly able to do that, but it got up the hill a pretty decent amount for coming in with such a slow speed. Go ahead and just try to maneuver out of there and then continue along on the slightly easier terrain. And I see a road over there. So maybe once we get to the road, we'll drive a different version that doesn't have 6 wheels on a normal road. Is this air? Air opportunity? Nope, not quite. And okay, we have flipped it over accidentally because I didn't realize the road was that close. I got super distracted. So that's the 6200 base. Let's go with a 4000 now. We'll get the 4100 camper because that's the first one on the list. So it was the first one most people would end up driving. And we can actually take a look at the inside of this one. I didn't take a look at the inside of the other one because the interior right here is basically the same between them, but then this one has the camper in the back, and this thing is actually pretty highly detailed. We have like an interior here, so we have a couch, and then we have a cabinet, we have a TV, a door, and then over here it looks like we have like a separate room or something. What that actually is a pop out. So if you hit the O key by default, it will go ahead and extend out like that. So then you have a bed that's a little bit more separated from the kitchen than if they were smashed together like that, but they leave enough room so you could actually maneuver through there if you absolutely needed to. And then when you're done looking at your pop out, or you're done cooking or whatever and you need to move, you just go ahead and pull it back in, and then you can continue driving just as before. Neat looking camper though. Anyways, let's go ahead and go back onto the regular driving camera and drive this thing around on these roads. And we'll take it off-roading a little bit too. Now, with it only being a 2-wheeled version with more weight to it, I would expect it to be a lot less capable off-roading than the other one. But it should still have some capabilities, I would expect. Now, going up this hill, we are slowing down just because of all that weight. It has more than enough power to keep going, but it's only going to maintain about 25 miles per hour, it looks like. When we get to the downhill, though, we're going to go with all that weight. 50. Come on, hit 60. 60, and we're in 8th gear. How many gears does this thing have? I really don't know, but it's a lot. It's like a real truck, not a pickup truck, a big rig truck in terms of the whole vehicle styling. So here we go. We're going to just fly off the road right here and take it off-roading immediately at 67 miles per hour. Oh, this thing is going to be top-heavy, isn't it? Oh, no, surprisingly not. I thought it was going to tip over a few times, and there is the eventual expected tip. But it was actually holding on for a decent amount until it did that. So you can see there's a little bit of damage to the camper. We'll try to make it upright so we can keep driving it, though, because I don't think there's any huge problems. And even with 30% strength on the grabbing node right there, you saw that thing was barely being pulled because of how heavy it is. Is that the edge of the map over there? It looks like it might be. If we get to the edge of the map, we'll have to turn around. So instead of going in that direction, let's go a little bit more to the right. But overall, this thing is a pretty capable off-road vehicle. My question is, though, is exactly how capable is it? Because this off-roading stuff is actually pretty easy. Now, what if we were to take this thing to a real serious off-road crawling map and try to do it there. I'm pretty sure it will fail miserably because it couldn't climb that hill earlier, but I really do want to see. So let's go ahead and bring this thing over to a new map. And the map I have in mind is Crawl Central. There it is. And to do this, we're going to use the 6200 once again because I want this thing to have the best chance possible to actually be able to climb up these hills. Now, right ahead of us, there's a really big one. I honestly don't expect this to work. We're going to try it anyways, but if it doesn't, we're going to go the opposite direction. And in that direction, I actually expect it to be able to do a little bit. So right there, just charging right at it, not even a chance. Maybe if you really had the correct angle of attack and stuff, you could climb that. But I'm not really interested in spending a lot of time to find the perfect angle and actually making it up. Instead, I'm going to go the opposite direction and just see what it can do on these slightly easier obstacles. And spinning this thing around actually takes a while because it's so ridiculously long. It's like you can't just turn the wheel left and hold the accelerator. You got to go like back and forth and back and forth. And right there, that's just a poor entry angle. That's the reason it's getting stuck right here. Let me try this from a slightly different angle. This one, it's not like I'm gonna have to try a lot of times. I just saw that is a really bad angle. We gotta swing it out a little bit like that, and there we go, making it look a little bit easier. Are we gonna crash into that tree? I guess not. I was a little bit worried I would hit the tree, so I kind of really went around the tree. Didn't need to. Going up another set of rocks, and again, no problem, but you can see this is definitely easier than the other direction. The other direction was probably double as steep and double the distance. Here, half the steepness and half the distance, so it can actually do it. But this feels pretty good for this vehicle. Like, the vehicle's not really struggling to do anything, but it's not exactly easy for the vehicle either. It's just the right amount. You gotta be a little bit cautious of your speed, slow down here and there to make sure you're not going too fast or you'll wreck yourself, but it's able to do it. Like, we've been going for about a minute straight and nothing's really stopped us. Just maintain momentum. Right there, that was so smooth. Like, you would usually expect that to be a lot rougher. Like, whoa, that was a little rough. Going a little too fast for my own good. And this is where it will fail, I bet. This is getting a little bit steeper, a little bit more difficult. And right there, I can't quite clear going on to that. So that will probably be the limitations of this vehicle's capabilities, unless I was to kind of cheat my way up this thing by going into the dirt a little bit and trying to find a easier path that probably isn't really a path, doing something like that. But overall, very, very impressed with this thing. So now let's go and just take it to some normal roads once again. And for the normal roads, how about we just head to Jungle Rock Island? You know, it almost looks like if we spawned up the vehicle right here, it might roll off the cliff behind us because it's so ridiculously long. So we're going to use the 6000 camper, which is a camper model equipped with 6 road wheels and a 7.2 liter engine, which is the smaller engine. And then if we can get going without falling off the cliff, we're going to try to climb the hill to our right. And I'm pretty sure it should be able to make it up the hill because it's a nice and smooth road. But I think it'll also lose a pretty significant amount of speed just because of how much weight this thing has. Now, we're able to get up to speed pretty easily on the flat right there, but hill is starting. So right here, little minor hill, still accelerating. The real hill, and we are definitely losing speed, but not enough to stop us. If we had no momentum coming into it, it might have been enough, but we have enough momentum, I think, to make it through this. Dropping down to 19 miles per hour and just holding that, it seems like. So that's about the kind of speed you would expect to go up a hill like that with this vehicle. Now, of course, we could have grabbed the one with a 12-liter engine and really pulled through with the hill, but I wanted the one with the smaller engine but as much weight as possible to really give it a test. And it passed with flying colors, I would think. Now, the next test, what happens if you drive it off a cliff? Couldn't get a good view of the actual impact happening, but you could see the outcome, and we could try to flip it over and keep going. Maybe? Might be stuck in the tree. Nope, there we go. I actually yanked that thing out. I thought it was going to be stuck. All right, can you drive? Unfortunately, might be a no after all that. Like, it didn't look that damaged, but yeah, it's not driving. Too bad. I think that's a pretty good demonstration of how this thing drives, so now we can focus on how it crashes. So we already dropped it off of one cliff, but we could drop it off of one more cliff before we move on to a new map. And right there, that's why dropping vehicles off of cliffs isn't really the best for crash testing. Even though we flew off a cliff, we don't have that much damage. Yeah, the front's a little beat up, and then the camper's a little beat up, but it's a little beat up, even though we jumped off of a cliff right there. So I think to do some proper crash testing, the best place to go is always going to be Gridmap, because it's nice and easy to get lined up for really consistent crashes to see how it does. And for crash testing, we're once again going to be using the 6000 camper version of the vehicle, because that one should be the most interesting to see crash. Now, I haven't shown it to you yet, but this one does have a different camper than the one we had earlier. It's actually a little bit bigger, and it's a little bit more luxurious looking, so we can turn on the lights with M so you can see it a little bit more clearly. It has a nice wood look to it, and then you got marble on the sinks. So right here, you got a little seating area. We can move into here and look in there. It's kind of like a bathroom, but there's nothing in it at the moment. Over here we got a TV, microwave, and fridge. So it's nice that there are multiple campers in terms of both exterior and interior looks. So we're going to try to crash this thing. First though, suspension test. Actually faring a lot better than I expected. I expected it to be awful because it's so big and so heavy, but it's so big and so heavy, so that kind of probably helped it to some extent, just because those bumps didn't mean as much compared to like a small car where it would really feel the bumps. So we're going to hit that wall way over there. Probably only going to be going about 60 miles per hour or so, because this thing does not accelerate fast with the smaller engine. But it should definitely be fast enough to see some damage happening. I don't know if the camper will be damaged, but the vehicle itself should get a decent amount of damage. For slow-mo, we'll stick with 16 times slow-mo here. Don't need 100 since we're only going 60 miles per hour. And it looks like we got a tiny bit of damage to the camper, but most of the impact was absorbed by the front of the vehicle. Can we still drive it? It appears so. If this thing will drive in a straight enough line, we could go ahead and do another round of crashing. See what happens when I accelerate here. Yeah, that's straight enough. We can control that. Front right there, it looks actually pretty decent. I mean, that was a 60 mile per hour crash with a really heavy vehicle, and it held up very, very well for that kind of impact. There's a little bit of damage to the camper itself, you notice. The doors actually popped open as well. We're going to just ignore that and slam into yet another wall, but it is slower with the damage. You notice we're not going to hit 60 this time. We're only going to hit maybe 50 if we go all the way to that wall, which is probably the best thing to do here, because I don't really have any other walls that I could easily maneuver to. Kind of got to go around the bumps, though, over on the left right there, because you see there's all hills and stuff. If we go right there, who knows what will happen. If we go here, I know exactly what will happen. We'll hit the wall head on. And once again, 16 times slow-mo should be the sweet spot here. So let's see. Any more damage to you? Little bit of a bend to the camper, more than before. Front doesn't look too much more damage than before. You can see it is a little bit more damage. Doesn't look that much more. Unfortunately, though, that has immobilized the vehicle because the whole camper's lifted up in the rear. Only the middle tires are touching the ground. I think even one of the fronts might not be really touching it quite right. Like that one, it's barely making contact with the ground. If I steer like that, there we go, it could actually lift it off the ground. Overall, very durable vehicle, but I don't notice any sort of glitchiness with it. Next up, we could try doing the loop-de-loop, which this thing will obviously fail because it's so big and heavy and slow, but it'll get some damage to the roof, I would expect. Gonna hit it at about 45 miles per hour. That should be good. And we're just gonna stay on it. We're not gonna tip off. We're just gonna stay on it for as long as we can. And then right on the rear. Good amount of damage to the camper. What's it look like from the inside when you damage it? Nothing terribly glitchy, but it does look funky because it all bends like metal instead of like wood and stuff. But that's kind of to be expected because no interior really deforms quite realistically. Let's see if we put this thing upright. Will it still function? Lift! Lift! So heavy. Will it drive? Nope. So let's fling it. Can we even fling it because it's so heavy? Huh, fling! You can't even fling this thing. Like normally you could fling a vehicle around by doing this. Yeah, that's not flinging it at all. Even if we like zoomed out some, I don't think it would help. Yep, that's terribly, terribly slow and not actually doing much in terms of damaging the vehicle. You almost need a stronger node grabber to actually do stuff to it. Alright, let's go ahead and grab the smaller camper for a little bit of testing now. And I want to see how this thing holds up if you were to hit it with a normal car. And I want to hit it actually in the camper not on the frame. So to do that, we're going to put it right in front of a jump over here. And then we should be able to hit the jump with a normal car and slam through the camper, I would expect. So I'm just going to slow it down right there. That is perfect. And then to crash into it, we're going to need something big, heavy, and reasonably fast. So we're going to go with the D35 version of the D series because that is my go-to vehicle for something like that. And we'll back it up a pretty good distance because I want to be going at least 60 miles per hour and probably more. I think we'll go for 80 miles per hour. Once we see it hit 80 or as far as we can go, whichever happens first. And not quite going to hit 80 going in this direction. Might be able to make it on the way back. So we'll just say there is the end for where we accelerate from. Spin the truck around. And then here we go for the impact that'll hopefully basically just fly through the camper. That's my goal here, is just to fly through it. Alright, don't bounce too hard. You're losing a lot of speed right there. I think it would have been going faster if I almost didn't do that jump. Or the bump or whatever. That's going to be about 75 here. Throw some slow-mo on, open up my tailgate. And this one, since it's a little bit higher speed than before and more going on, we'll use 100 times slow-mo and try to get a real fancy camera angle going here. So something like that where you could really see it clearly. Maybe pull the camera down a little bit so you can see what the actual vehicle is doing. So it didn't actually go through it, but it did push it. Pushed it onto its side and actually made it go upright too somehow. How did it manage that? So can it drive? Yes, it can. What's the inside look like? Oh, it is a mess in here. What if I tried to do the pop out when it's so beat up? Let's see what happens here. By the way, the bigger one does not have a pop out, unfortunately. Actually, it's kind of cool. The pop out still pulls out, and you can see the beds have been really messed up. Like, everything's been messed up in here, but it still drives. We could also try driving it with the pop out open and crashing the pop out into something. That might be interesting. We just got to find something that sticks out enough where we can get speed. Like right here, that's a little too close. What I think I'll do is I'll use those giant blocks over to our right. I'm going to try to swing this. Might mess up and ruin everything, though. And I think it is going slower than if it was fully functional, so I don't know if I actually want to do this. Tell you what, we're going to actually wait to crash the pop-out. Instead, we're going to go all the way over there, spin it around 180 degrees, and then do it just so we can go a little bit faster. Or we just hit the blocks that are over there. And we're not going to go much faster than this with the vehicle's current state, so we'll just crash it here and then we'll reset it for a new one. Question is just, can I hit it right on the pop-out? There we go, perfect. And ooh, interesting. That was not what I expected. I expected it to come out. It just held its ground though. And I have actually unfortunately ruined the vehicle, so we gotta get a new one. I'm gonna try that again and hopefully we'll hit a little bit of a higher speed this time if this thing will actually back up. Okay, something's acting a little bit funky with it. I don't know if that's damage or what, but we're just gonna get a new one just in case. Just gonna slam into that. It should be a little bit faster than the last one, and maybe it'll pull it off. Maybe it doesn't get pulled off. I don't know. About 50 miles per hour on impact. Should be a good speed. Slow it down more. There you go. And I guess the pop-out will not come out, because I'm basically yanking the whole camper off the frame and it is staying on there. And I've accidentally shot a fireball because I used my wizard magic. And amazingly, it just keeps driving. So actually, you know what I want to do? I want to do another test where I crash into the frame itself instead of crashing into the upper part of the vehicle. So we're just going to bring the truck forward. And you know what? Let's do this. Crash the truck into this. Both moving speeds. Slow-mo prepared. Slow-mo activate. 100 times slow-mo. Let's see this thing get wrecked. And by this thing, I mean the truck. Wow, it really is just crunching through it. And it just stopped. I thought I was going to go a little bit farther. Did a pretty decent amount of damage, though, and we can keep on driving, maybe? Kind of stuck inside the truck, I think. Move the truck out the way and see what happens. yeah, we can still drive this. And that was a fast impact, and for that, very minimal damage just because it's such a heavy-duty vehicle. Anyways, let's go ahead and finish up this video by going to Brutal Slope and Leap of Death. We'll start off with Brutal Slope, then move over to Leap of Death. And for the crash testing here, we're going to once again be using one of the 6000s. We're going to use the 6100 though, because that one has off-road tires, and well, this is kind of like off-roading, so we could use the off-road tires. So I say kind of like off-roading because, yeah, it's technically dirt and grass, but it's so smooth, it really shouldn't be considered off-roading. So we'll go slow there and then just floor it. And hopefully this will do some serious damage to it. I really have no idea what to expect here. I'm going to go through all of my gears. You know, this might be one of the first vehicles to barely reach redline. Like, that thing is just getting into 4,000 RPMs, but it's not actually going past the tachometer, which almost every other vehicle does doing the Brutal Slope run. A little bit premature on that slow-mo. We'll go 4 times until we get closer, and then we'll kick it all the way down to 100 times, because that's the only way to be able to see this with any sort of reasonable ability to tell what's going on. And yep, camper is getting crushed, but that's it. That's all the camper's gonna get crushed by. There's still the rear of the camper kind of holding up. What if we go inside of it? The camera got so awkwardly placed you can't tell. And the engine is making a real funny noise here. So actually, if you look in there, the interior held up really well for that kind of impact. Like, some of it's just gone basically because it got crushed away, but the parts that you can recognize are still pretty easily recognizable. Is that the engine, or is that the parts bouncing off of each other actually? Because the engine's at 0 RPMs. I don't know. Making some funky noises though. And by the way, it does have custom engine sounds. I'll be quiet while this thing rolls down the hill so you could actually hear them a little bit. And right here, I have no idea what's going to happen. I don't know if it'll make it through it or what. Wow. It actually made it through that. That is impressive. And now it almost looks like a flatbed truck in the back that got crushed. Oh, that's cool. There's like a sound for the engine trying to start up. Listen to that. I have never heard that before. That's cool. Unfortunately, I don't think there's anything you can do to actually start it up. Anyways, let's go ahead and off to the final map, which will be, as I said earlier, Leap of Death. And you already know which one I'm about to spawn up here, so I'm not even going to say it. We're just going to grab it, and then we're going to go. Well, try to go. There we go. It's moving now. This thing's actually going to be able to get a pretty good amount of speed for how slow it is, just because of that little downhill slope right there. Able to get up to 40 miles per hour, and then it's going to drop like a brick because it is so heavy. We'll do this in full speed, and if it looks interesting, we'll do a slow-mo run as well. Well, aside from the camera angle going kind of awful, that looked pretty interesting, so we will be doing a slow-motion run in addition to this one. Right now, though, we are the Flaming Camper. And now it's been entirely flattened. And that wasn't that many bounces to get to the water. It was just like, boop, 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 we're in the water. And the water's too dark to be able to see anything, unfortunately, so I'm not even going to bother to try. If you wanted to be able to see it, you would have had to stop it before it hit the water. Which I might do for this run with the addition of slow-mo. So we're going to put the brakes on and really flip this thing over, make sure we get the roof beat up here. Okay, so slow-mo activate, more, and then all the slow-mo, 100 times. Lot of impact on the front. Rear's actually doing okay. Let's go kind of weird camera angle like this so you see through everything. And it's bouncing off, so that's pretty much the extent of the damage from that impact. Go and speed up a bit. Might get a little more damage there. Up, and it glitched out. Okay, well, that'll be it then. So until next time, this has been WhyBeAre. I'll see ya.